Here's what people are actually asking, that 2 a.m. spiral. Why do I feel so anxious about money, even though I have plenty? I've done all the affirmations, I did all the journaling, and I cannot seem to change my money mindset. I've manifested other things. Why can't I figure this out? What is wrong with me? These aren't mindset questions. These are trauma questions. There's extensive literature on cognitive approaches to money beliefs. There is robust research on trauma and nervous system responses, but the bridge between them, applying trauma-informed frameworks specifically to money wounds, that's barely explored. What's missing is trauma-informed approaches to financial healing, somatic practices for working with money shame, nervous system regulation for pricing and visibility, frameworks that distinguish between limiting beliefs and the trauma responses, strategies that account for how oppression lives in the body and its impact on your business. If you have a trauma history and mindset work hasn't worked for you, you don't need another visualization practice. You don't need to try harder to believe that you're worthy. You need a framework that acknowledges that your financial struggles may not be about your mindset at all. Not you. The other stuff. Shame often isn't yours. If you've absorbed messages from systems that devalued you, you internalized conditioning that had nothing to do with your actual worth. You learned survival responses from experiences where money was genuinely threatening. You carry wounds from oppression that targeted and was used to discriminate against you. And healing is needed first, but requires different tools: nervous system regulation, somatic practices, trauma processing, evidence building, systemic analysis, and critique, which is what we're doing here. So let's distinguish between limiting beliefs and trauma responses. A limiting belief is cognitive. You can think your way out of this. I'm not good with money. That's learned through lack of education. But a trauma response is somatic. You can't hold financial boundaries without intense guilt. Setting limits at one time meant punishment or abandonment. You have a visceral response when revenue fluctuates. The nervous system learns scarcity meant survival threat. Especially when you're running a business, months ebb and flow. That's a business. And if you're having a physiological freak out in those ebb months, that's trauma. Ask where the shame came from. Is it actually yours, or is this shame that you absorbed from your systems? If the shame isn't yours, the healing looks differently. You're not healing a personal failing. You're untangling yourself from oppressive messaging. You're separating your actual worth from what you were taught about people like you. This is political work, not just personal work, but personal is political. But that's why the healing is so, so important. This isn't just about you, just isn't about your business. This is a ripple effect. You've got to work with your nervous system, though, not against it. But trauma healing is slow. You're rewiring nervous system responses that were encoded through years or decades of experience. You're untangling conditioning that often goes back generations. And you're healing wounds that touch identity, belonging, safety, and survival. This work requires patience. It's a lot, but small actions build capacity over time. Nervous system regulation comes before strategy implementation. Healing isn't linear. You're going to have your good days, you're going to have your hard days. Slow isn't failure. Slow is appropriate for the depth of the work that you are doing. The money mindset industry built an empire on the promise that your financial struggles are in your head, a quick fix. And once you shift your beliefs, believe differently, and everything changes. For people with trauma histories, this is gaslighting. Your trauma responses aren't limiting beliefs. Your nervous system activation isn't resistance to abundance. Your survival mechanisms aren't worthiness wounds. Your legitimate pain isn't something you're manifesting through negative beliefs. You don't need another abundance course. You need trauma-informed frameworks that acknowledge the difference between cognitive beliefs and somatic responses. You need practices that work with your nervous system instead of trying to override it. You need permission to heal slowly, messily, and completely without blaming yourself, because you're not broken.